it's a different everywhere. Does Ireland seem to have a pretty good control on managing it over there? Because I know like smaller countries that don't have as many access points seem to have an advantage, but I feel like it's still hard to get good information on what's actually transpiring. So I'd love to hear it from what you see.
Well, I had it, and everybody like in my family circle had it, and nobody died. Nobody ended up in hospital.
Right.
Like I was going by the hospital today on the way to get food, and apparently we're having this big surge at present. But there was 6 ambulances outside, drivers sitting in them. I don't know. It's a wee bit annoying. It's like just I think it should be probably 2 years after. It should just be probably time to move along with life. When I was back over in the States last year, we were in Tennessee. We done 2 or 3 meets. There was no masks. There was no, sanitizing at it. There was no social distancing, and nobody got COVID. And I've yet to see anybody in my 2 years of traveling through it see anybody drop dead. So I guess it shouldn't be vaccinated against unvaccinated. It should just be everybody united to freedom of choice, as opposed to, oh, you got it, I didn't get it. It should be like, oh, you didn't want it, that's fine, and just get on with your life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how savvy, or actually both of you guys, have you guys heard the Aaron Rodgers story?
Football or no?
Football, yeah, American football.
I seen something about it on Instagram, I think.
Yeah, like he didn't get vaccinated. He just claimed he was immunized. Dustin, did you hear any of this?
Yeah.
I don't know what is real, because that's a problem. I've caught things of what the media says about it, but I don't actually know what he specifically himself said to like hold him to it.
Yeah, I mean,
that is a good question. As far as you've had it, it doesn't seem like you're getting any sort of credentials. If you've had it, you've gotten over it, and it's put out like it's better to get vaccinated than actually get COVID and then have the immunity. I think that has to be wildly inaccurate, but that's what people think. Like when I ask any person that's, I don't know, reluctant to use the word normie, that's what they say. They say, oh, yeah, it's probably better to get a vaccination than just get it and actually have your own immunity. But I just think that goes wildly against everything biologically that I would think, common sense wise. And I mean, shit, that's how I learned strength conditioning, was using common sense and keeping track of things.
Yeah.
So
layman's term.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he had a really good case for his, where he was like, when I go into my facility, Green Bay Packer, Wisconsin, it's a fucking huge facility, and there are people that are vaccinated there anyway, and they're still getting it. The new, whatever new variants there are, they're still getting them, and they're wearing masks. So it's like, well, why am I going to, do that?
Yeah.
And like immunized is a new entanglement.
Oh, it's a very gray area. My personal favorite of gray. So awesome.
Yeah. We didn't have an affair. I had an entanglement. I'm not vaccinated. I'm immunized.
Right. But if you say that,
language is critical.
Yes, if you say that, like if I would say it to me, like a year ago, I'd be like, oh, okay, he's vaccinated.
Yeah,
that's what I would just assume. I'll just assume.
Yep.
Oh hell. Yeah. Okay.
Language is a dangerous thing if used inappropriately. That's a
there has been a lot of like bodybuilders kind of seem to drop dead this year.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last week. Oh
yeah, well, I understand, but steroid abuse has been going since the 60s and 70s, so there's no way people just started dropping dead through steroid abuse at a quicker rate in 2021.
At this rate, yeah.
No, and those are upper echelon guys too, that they're not getting steroids made in someone's bathtub in an apartment building. They're getting they're getting pharmaceutical grade stuff. So we know it's not. I bet a lot of people that aren't in the know would try to say something like that, but no, it's something deeper.
So I don't know. I don't understand it all, but that's part of my reasoning why I don't want to get it, because obviously being an athlete, lifting a lot of heavy weight and stuff, some of the side effects of it goes with blood clots and heart damage, and obviously pulling a lot of weight and doing stuff, I've probably got an enlarged heart, and my blood is probably a wee bit thicker than average Joe's. So,
sure.
I don't really want to risk it.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And anyone that kind of does what we do, I don't think death is the biggest fear. The biggest fear is not being able to live your life the way you want to. So if you had any sort of, hindered abilities because of it, that's the real fear in my eyes.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take something, have blood clots, and be not doing what I'd like to do for 5 months after I've already took COVID and been fine.
Right.
So I think you run the risk of, and that's why I'm not anti-vax whatsoever. I can't be, and I can't not support pharmaceuticals because I can't 3 times a week with injectables.
Yeah. Freedom.
So I'm not the anti pharmaceutical guy. I ain't run about telling like dad bods to go here. If you took us 2 times a week, you might look better, and there's plenty more research on it. So I'm definitely not. I just ain't doing it because I don't need a blood clot or something to be fucked up with my heart. So
right, and I think Dustin brought this point. I think you and I'm sure you feel of it too. Where like the guys that are passing away, and granted, I'm sure there are ones that are passing away we don't know about, especially in the bodybuilding industry. We are dealing with a lot of pharmaceuticals. You're dealing with a lot of blood volume based type training where you're almost like asking for it. Like you're asking for it. A lot of them aren't like lower level guys. At least not the ones we know about. You have like George P. passes like just is gone, and then like Sean Roden's gone. Like that's a whole other situation. I think the Sean Roden thing had an inordinately large amount of stress, and there were certain organizations that just did him fucking dirty. Yeah, and that, I think that was another level to that anyway. But what's your take on that whole situation? Do you have something?
I just think the fitness industry is like a lot of other industries, but they love you when you're at the top, and if something happens, you're yesterday's news and you're done and out. There's always someone going to replace you, and the real secret to the fitness industry is really pretty dirty, isn't it? There's not.
Yeah.
It's not as you see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at some of these guys, it's not unattainable. Obviously, anybody can do anything they set their mind to, but there's a lot goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people never talk about. So that's not a bad thing. I don't think everybody has to be transparent, but people obviously know. But to an extent of what goes on behind closed doors, I think there's probably amateurs that take more stuff and have more risks than top professionals.
Yes.
So,
do you think that's a genetics thing, or do you think that's I'm at the bottom, I need to get to the top, and all I hear about is drugs now, so I'm just gonna push it?
Yeah. I think obviously if you have the genetics to be strong, but you can have genetics and obviously also be lazy, which means that you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Really fast, because if you could have I could have the genetics for maybe playing badminton, but I was never going to do it. And if I had the genetics, I'm never going to fit because it wouldn't interest me whatsoever. So I think a lot of guys, normal guys just start the gym and they always want to know what's the next best thing to take.
Yeah.
Like a dad
easy
starts
button.
A gym in the new year, and he's like, what pre-workout can I buy? Oh, can I take orals? What can I take? And it's like, man, you could just like take your time.
Take your time. Yeah, that's the takeaway from the episode right there.
That we could end it right there. That is the simplest, most profound piece of advice I think anyone that I've heard in a while is, you could just take your time. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know what the rush is to try and get to this jack dude that can do nothing because he's learned nothing and he just looks like chemical warfare is blew up inside.
And we know like the amount of joy. I mean, what's really built on a mental level is that consistency and having to work for something. Any easy come, easy go. But when you slave over trying to develop yourself, all the extra stuff you get on the mental side of that from going through that hardship, that's what turns you into superhuman in reality. And if you skip that, I mean, you skip this critical piece of human development,
Yeah. Well, if someone gave you a fast forward button and told you that's what it would be like if you hit it. You wake up in the morning and you're like a Sean Roden or you're like Rami. I guess it wouldn't be special anymore because you're like, man, that kind of seems pointless.
Yeah, everyone's doing it.
But
yeah,
it would be nice to wake up like that maybe for a day, and then you'd be like, man, I really didn't do anything to get here, and I know nothing.
Yeah. Right.
So therefore, it would be like handing me an F1 car or a NASCAR and saying, there you go, you wanted it, now you've got it. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm going to end up looking like a Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah.
When I start driving about in that thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that because you have a unique background, so
that's what I want to hear.
People that don't know, so like I'm gonna go and give your somewhat fitness industry life story, which is probably gonna be heinously incorrect, but you got into bodybuilding. You actually, as an Irishman living in Ireland, were sponsored by Ronnie Coleman, by his supplement company. He actually reached out to you because he liked the way you looked. In Ireland, when he's in Texas, he's like, yeah, I want to sponsor you. Sponsored you. You transitioned from that into deadlifting, into strongman, into deadlifting. Like, how did the whole bodybuilding thing come around for you when you came around? You're like, you know what? I like lifting weights. I like looking good. Like, how far did that take you?
Well, I started off when I was a kid, like cycling. So, because my dad cycled, and then I went to boxing. And when I was at boxing, I seen dudes that looked good. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to go in a ring and fight looking like a
cyclist. Yeah, it's like your quads. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but not realizing because I was young that when you went into a ring then to fight, you had to, you wore like a t-shirt and you wore like headgear. It wasn't like professional boxing where you were like having a walk on and, giving it stacks. So then whenever I started the boxing, that's what started me at the gym. And then I sort of fizzled out the boxing training and just stuck at the gym. And then I went and seen all of my friends doing a bodybuilding contest, and Sally just stupidly I opened my mouth and was like, I'm going to do that next year. And about a month after that, when the kind of passion and the buzz of that show, watching it wore off, I'm like, oh no. I've said to everybody I'm doing this within the last 2 or 3 weeks. So now I'm going to have to do it. So I actually ended up just bodybuilding through. I said something and I didn't back out of it. So that was how I ended up starting to compete in bodybuilding. And I think a month to 2 months after I said it, I was like, man, if I don't do this, everybody's going to think I'm full of shit. So that's
the problem being a man of your word.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up competing. So, and from that, then I done it for another 10 years, and I never finished any less than third in the bodybuilding show, and how I ended up sponsored by Ronnie Coleman as my friend Giles Thomas writes for Muscular Development in the US, or he did, and Giles was like the UK ambassador for Ronnie Coleman, and then Giles contacted me to sponsor me, and then I worked at Body Power and stuff with Ronnie Coleman, and that's kind of how I went from the Ronnie Coleman thing, and then from doing volleyball and being strong, I got asked to do a strongman event, and it was local people doing it, but there were some good strongmen there. There was Brian Irwin. I think he'd been to the world's strongest man or got to the world's qualifiers, and 8 weeks out I said I wasn't doing it, and then 2 weeks out they said that somebody had pulled out and they really needed someone to do it, so would I do it? And at 2 weeks out, it kind of gave me an excuse that if I didn't do well, I'd never trained for it, and it was okay. But in fact, I ended up placing second. So then after that, I just kind of stuck at strongman because I beat some of them guys that were good and were decent names at the time. So then I stuck at strongman, and I don't know, I got good at deadlifting, and then I progressed on from that to getting to the World Deadlift Championships and going across the Westside, and I don't know, it's just been a kind of stepping stone from one thing into another, but they're all like kind of closely interlinked. So
yeah, how much do you think from your bodybuilding, your 10 years of bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, helped you translate over to strongman?
Well, I think I had a lot of the like higher rep stuff. So obviously events aren't always just like powerlifting where it's a 1 rep max. So I think the hypertrophy work that I'd done for strongman for shoulder pressing, for high rep squats and higher rep deadlifts. I think that actually helped me a lot. Plus, it built me a good base of muscle to start with. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as I say, a bigger muscle can be a stronger muscle.
Yeah.
I think that actually helped me. And obviously, because I trained for the first lot of years when I trained, I didn't know how to train. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because as much as I trained wrong, I trained really hard and really wrong, and done a lot of stuff that I'd look back at and be like, fuck, I would like be blowing out my ass if I was to try that now.
Yeah.
Even though it would be pointless, it still built me a great foundation. It was just, I didn't go and pick up a book and learn, but I watched stronger guys in the gym and learned from the stronger guy. I'm like, okay, well, that dude seems to be strong. And then when I could squat more than him, I'm like, well, I must be quite strong, because that dude's quite strong in my eyes. And I just kind of progressed from there. But I do think that bodybuilding training, if you're doing it heavy, mm-hmm. obviously helps. But if I still was doing bodybuilding, I think the heavy factor, I wouldn't need to go as heavy as I do now. Although, like, bodybuilders like Branch Warren and Johnny Jackson and Ronnie Coleman, of course, they all lifted heavy and they all had that thick, dense muscle. So I think you just get a love for lifting heavy. So, and when you do bodybuilding, you just lift heavy for more reps.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Dustin, you and I have talked about like back squatting and being really good at like heavy ass 20 reps, mm-hmm. and how that translates over to a 1. Like, you're even heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Vincent and I had this conversation too when he came down and visited when I was working at NSU. And if you're tracking stuff and you're making progress, I don't care if you're doing 20 reps or 3 reps. If you're making progress, you're getting, and it's in a strength realm. You're not just adding reps. I mean, on some degree, you're getting stronger there too. But if I'm adding weight to 20 repetitions consecutively, you might not be making as big of jumps every week, but you add that up over a decade and you've gotten fucking strong potentially, and you never did under, 10 reps.
And it's good to build the tendons and stuff as well. I think a lot of guys that just go straight into strength stuff and they follow a strength program, it's like they haven't done a lot of repetition, they haven't done a lot of hypertrophy or volume. So therefore, sometimes, their tendons and stuff slack, and a lot of high rep stuff actually helps your tendons. So that's why you see some of them guys come off doing high rep stuff and try even a max and they're shit pups. So I think it's a nice way to build into stuff.
Yeah. Do you think that's the biggest translator over that's this? Because Dustin and I talk about this all the time. I've talked about it with other people as well, all strength coaches, where what is the missing factor when it comes from like bodybuilding world to strength world to athletics? Like, what is that piece that can share back and forth? Do you feel like that is the big piece when it coming from the bodybuilding world to a strength world? Is that repetition work that strength world isn't doing, that if they did it, it would help them?
It might, but I also believe you've seen some guys at Westside that maybe haven't done loads of repetition work and they were still strong ass motherfuckers for 1 rep max. Like, so I think the key to anything is mindset. So I think like how you perceive it in your head. If you believe you can do something and you go balls to the wall on it, there's some guys I've seen warming up and big squats and powerlifting meets that when they went down, I'm like, surely to fuck they're not like, if that's their last warm up,
right?
What and they be squatting, and they went and took all 3 attempts, and they've like shook the whole way up and grinded it out, and I've like squatted 300 more pounds, and I'm like, but I couldn't do that. But so everybody's different. So I don't know what the carryover is. I think the main carryover is your mindset. So if you're prepared to work hard to be a good bodybuilder, you'll be good. If you're prepared to work hard to be a good strongman or powerlifter, the thing is you'll be good. So by working hard, it's maybe sometimes investing in somebody, being coached by somebody who knows how to make you better, as opposed to going, I have the work ethic, so I'm just going to guess it.
Right. Do you think the last generation of good work ethics is gone?
Oh, well, yeah, some people just work for the gram now. And it's, as long as people write in below their things that they're a savage or an animal, and they can compare themselves to silverbacks. It's like, I think work ethic while you're standing holding your phone is probably not you could probably do a wee bit more if you set it down and just like
it's a little bit more.
Yeah.
We should probably make a new set of gym etiquette, but that'd be one of them. Is you could probably do a little more if your phone wasn't in your hand.
Yeah. Oh, like I've set my phone up at Westside, and I obviously know Louis hates them, but at the same time I set it up and just recorded
left
full
it.
size.
Just left it. Yeah.
It's a little bit different. There's definitely a fine line between using it as a tool and using it as a distraction.
Yeah. Oh, like I wasn't going back and forward to check it and go, oh, I'm going to upload this to my story. It was like if we were deadlifting and we were on the platform for 36 minutes, it got 36 minutes of my lifting. And as soon as it was up, I forgot about it. Never once did I say to somebody, oh, you're actually probably standing in front of my phone. It was like, it was there. And sometimes to record yourself training isn't a bad tool because you see where you're at. So if a pull is hard, you can see if your shoulders was a bit in front of the bar, if your arms were slack. So you can get good feedback if you have the knowledge by watching where you go wrong and something. But certainly I wouldn't be on the phone just trying to do shit on the phone and then getting recorded. So
right. And just to qualify this, like he's talking about having a phone set at Westside. Did you usually not like wrap it around that incline press? I remember that. Yeah. Cause I would be there. I'd hold phones too for people like this, like to record their lifts. So like he's talking about people out there, he's talking about having this phone recording as he's pulling like routinely over 900 pounds. Like that's what we're talking about right now. So your best lift is what? Conventional 946?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
No.
just all work.
Yeah, I think
like
Pete kind of
go. What you saying? Sorry. Go.
No, you're good. I would go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to backtrack for a second on something you said because I'm a believer in it, but go ahead.
Oh no, well, backtrack. I was just going to say all we done was I had my phone at the start of the workout. It was connected to a machine, and record was pressed, and that was the last time I seen my phone until I'd done my last deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
So I was set up at the start of the workout, and it never interfered with my workout whatsoever.
Yeah. It's just like hanging a painting on the wall. It's just there to just monitoring.
And I can qualify that. That is what he did every time. Yeah. What do you got, Dust?
Well, I mean, Joe, when you were asking, kind of making that transition between the realms of strength that we kind of talk about, Pete kind of touched on, the tendon aspect of doing all that volume work. And obviously there's a fine line with everything, but I'm a huge believer in that carrying over, along with the fact that you learned that there's a different kind of struggle. And if you can learn to grind through that and breathe and keep good posture doing a lot of volume, transitioning that over to that struggle when you have a 1 rep max on the bar, I just feel like there's a lot less fault. I'd be interested, Pete. Have you been fairly durable throughout your strongman powerlifting career after the bodybuilding? Because I just know I came from a sports background, then went into bodybuilding, then more powerlifting after that. And I think the fact that I didn't get any injuries had a lot to do with all that volume and ingrained form doing it in the bodybuilding realm. And then when I carried that over to lifting a lot heavier weights, I just felt like, one, I was more durable, and two, I was less likely to have some sort of fault in my form because I was used to, grinding through when normally when form would break down doing a lot of repetitions, I was really used to kind of keeping that integrity. So I assume that's probably helped you in your career too.
Yeah. Injury wise, I haven't been too bad until about the last 2 years. My first meet with Westside, I was pulling 920 to get on the board, but I'd never trained grip before that. So I was kind of going from strongman and straps and just having good grip. And it's on my Instagram somewhere, but when I deadlifted the 920, I got up near the top and my left bicep just popped up my arm. So I tore my pec as well. But that was a way back. Just I hadn't benched in 2 years, and one day thought I would try a 500-pound bench. Went down with it halfway up and popped as well. So that was just stupidity on my end again. It was just I hadn't even trained it. And then at a Highland Games thing, I came off a platform, so my toes raised up while holding the stone, and I popped my hamstring. And then Ireland's strongest man this year, I partially tore that bicep just lifting an Atlas stone because it was so wide. So, but to be fair, the injuries I've had and I've came back from and stuff have all been fine. And for as long as I've been lifting heavy stuff, I've only really had a wee bit of hassle with injuries over the last year and a half to 2 years. So I guess it's to be expected, especially when you're pulling. You know, there's a difference between pulling at 300 kilo and pulling at 400 kilo plus quite a lot, you know. But for the amount of weight I've lifted, for the amount of times I've lifted it, yeah, my injury rate's pretty low.
Right.
So, I think you can get injured. I seen a guy getting injured doing an easy curl. With
stupid shit. Yeah, easy, stupid shit. Yeah.
It's a different game when you're constantly putting on, you know, that kind of weight. And then when you throw in the mix something like a Highlands Games event where it's a little bit more uncontrolled, you know, you're not necessarily grabbing that stone, like you're doing something that's I'd almost equate it to, you know, we talk about, is it a non-contact injury or is it a contact injury? When you start doing some of those events where there's some uncontrollable aspects to it, it's kind of a matter of, it's not an if, it's a when potentially, especially if you're at the level that you're at, moving the weights that you're moving. It's kind of par for the course on some level, but.
Yeah, I'm doing mobility. I do a bit of mobility. So I have started, like I've been doing that for quite a while. So doing mobility and stuff, I think also helps you a little from preventing your injuries as well. It's just that it's not the fun thing to do all the time, but I guess if you want to stay injury free, you need to do something to try and, you know, sort of give yourself a bit of a better chance from it.
Right. Yeah. So you've had no like major like slip discs.
No,
fucking broke bone, like nothing, no torn fucking like major torn tendons. Like you're talking about like a torn pec, but like.
I think but bicep there. So and like I never went for a surgery because Louis told me it would be fine. And 3.5 weeks later, sure, I went to the next meet in Tennessee, and I pulled 385 kilo, whatever that is in freedom units. I do not know, but I pulled 385 kilo at the next meet, and like the calluses weren't even really repaired in my hands from the first meet. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, so he pulled 847 with a 3-week-old torn bicep with fucked up calluses. Yeah.
Well, I knew my bicep couldn't have been fully healed because my calluses weren't fully healed. But I also knew that if you don't compete, then you have to, like, I don't know, obviously help ones and like do the wraps and stuff. And I hadn't really wrapped a lot of squatters in my time, so I'm like, I don't want to be held responsible for somebody else maybe fucking up. And I'm like, so
that's how it always works. It's always your fault. It's never their fault.
Yeah. I'm like, can I just do the meet? And he was like, try a high pan pull today and see how your bicep feels. And I pulled 385 off a high pan, and I pulled it again. And I pulled that on the Monday, and I pulled it again the Saturday at meet.
Yeah, I mean, I like talking about like your immensely big fucking conventional pull. Like Dustin, I'll tell you, the first time I ever saw this man was Westside at a Monday morning. I roll in that bitch, like, you know, 640, 645. Everyone's in there warming up. You know, it's kind of doing, they have a plate on the bar and they're just kind of just deadlifting it. And I want to say, Pete, was your first day at Westside, were they pulling deficit, a 2-inch deficit?
Yes, either that or it was off a 2-inch mat.
Was off 2-inch mats? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was either a mat or a def. I can't remember, but we weren't convinced, like, straight off the floor.
I almost feel as though it was a 2-inch deficit, simply because you were pulling conventional, and I was like, oh, he's a conventional puller, and I thought you were just like just a visitor. I'm like, this will be great. He's gonna get his dick pushed in the dirt.
Yeah.
And we start and like everyone like everyone in powerlifting, they're gonna go like 1 over 1 under, like, you know, like so they can keep the bar from rolling. And if they're not, this is a major no-no at Westside at the time, like you're gonna go, you know, you're gonna go double over hook. You're gonna Kayla Woolham it, you know, like Dr. Deadlift it. And everyone's pulling and had 1 plate, 2 plates, and he just jumps in at 2 plates, doesn't even touch the plate, and he double overhands it, no hook, just like man grip on the bar and just rips it right up. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, I could do that. Whatever. 3 plates go on the bar. People are like pulling it. It was slowing down a little bit. He comes up to it, double overhands it, man grips it, no hook, rips it right up. 4 plates, same thing, does it for like a couple reps because you have to hit that 405 for a couple reps, I guess, at that point with a double overhand. No readjustment at the bottom. Puts on 5 plates, puts on a belt, double overhands it, pulls it right up. And at that point, that's when I realized, like, oh, this guy came to play. This guy's been fucking around. He's not fucking around. And everyone else is like, you see their faces, their eyes behind them, they're just like, oh no, like, oh no, this is gonna get embarrassing. Because like you see we'll start to warm up conventional, and then half of them will like stay conventional, half of them will go sumo. Yeah. And like even the sumo ones are starting to slow down a little bit, and he just keeps going. And it was great. I don't know what you pulled that day, but it was something just stupid where like everyone's done. I think even Big Josh was done. It was done. Yeah. And you did like 2 or 3 more jumps. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah. My first day at Westside, I must say, I felt kind of lucky because I came and it was deadlift on the first day I was there.
It was made to be.
So like I came in and Silent Joe was sitting, and Tom had brought me in that morning and turned the lights on, and I was like, the way Joe just sat. So Joe's a really nice guy, but obviously if you don't know him, you kind of look across.
You'll never know. Yeah. Let's go savage.
Yeah. Had it up and his head up, and I'm like, oh, right, okay. And I'm like, hello, how are you? And kind of, hello, how are you at Westside seems to not be like what you should be.
No, you don't say anything. Usually.
Yeah.
That's no chat.
But it was all right. And then people started coming in, and I'm like, oh, fuck, these motherfuckers are all going to be really strong, and I better be like half decent today. Right. And then I think obviously it just built up me. They were like, what do you want to pull from? And I'm like, oh, I'll pull off this. And like I've been at Westside long enough and seen visitors come in, so I know that obviously when I come in, I know what everybody else was thinking.
Yeah,
who's this motherfucker? We're going to show him.
Yeah,
but at the time, I didn't know that that's what they thought. So I'm at the time, I'm like, hello, how are you? All right, okay, hi.
Yeah,
and then by the time it got to the end of it, and I think like JP Carl and there was at the time and went out, and I was like, yeah, I respect that motherfucker. That's a good pull. So that got me off on a very good start. At least I kind of earned the respect of people on my first day when I was there.
Yeah.
And then the first time squatting on a Friday that was a tough one. So
what happened? I'm sure I was there. I don't remember that as firmly as Monday.
I think it was like, I think some of them guys were doing triples, and then Louis told me to do 5, and it was only me, JP, and Burley that were doing it together. And that was quite fun. So that I looked and I said to Louis, do you want me to squat over with them guys? And they was like, do you want to squat big? He says, you need to squat with big squatters. And I was like, I didn't know who JP was even at the time either. So I'd looked him up on Instagram when I went home on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this motherfucker squats 1,000 and Burley squats 1,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
raw.
How am I supposed to squat with these guys with the bands and all the stuff? So I went in and I squatted, but like, again, they just worked it really fast. And I think by the time I got to like the 4th set, I remember reading like, don't sit down, don't lean on things, Lou doesn't. And I was like, 3rd set, I'm like, I'm fucked. 4th set, I'm like, I need to lean on something. And like, I think the 5th set, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to lie down on the floor. And then I'm like, don't lie on the floor, go towards the door. So I went towards the door, was sick, then come back in. Burley was like, sure set, motherfucker. And I'm like, right, okay. And done another like 5. Crawled out and then lay on the ground. And Louis come over and like kicked me and he was like, do you not train like that in Ireland? And I'm like, no. And he was like, well, you got to get fatter than that then. And then we were straight into good mornings. And I'm like,
good mornings? With the cambered bar out of the chain?
Yeah, with bands on it. And I'm like, man, they were like, and like I think I puked 2 times during the squat workout. So I was like the color of that stuff. And then they were like, good mornings. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, if I don't do these, and it was like, your turn.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're that's how it goes there. I'm sure you've been there long enough that you eventually saw like the system of like, oh, this guy, he's a new guy. Like, they'll have him squatting. Yeah. And it's like, oh, how did it look great. Plate, slows down. Yeah. Look great. Plate, gets really slow. Plate. Oh, my upper back's going. Don't worry about it. Plate. Yeah. Oh, my God, my knees coming in. Quarter.
It's about a fire. Yeah.
No, that sounds like a welcome to church sort of scenario.
Yeah, it's like don't like it, well, you know where the door is. So I do get that there's probably been people came there and went, fuck that, I ain't going back there. But I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, so, it's a blast. It's a blast. Did you ever train with Chuck?
Yes.
Did you do good mornings with Chuck, or what did you do with Chuck?
I done that Voger pull thing with I think with a squat and with a good morning thing.
So he had to squat to a box with the Vogel pole, have to do a good morning and stand up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Chuck was actually okay with me.
Oh yeah, Chuck would love you. Oh yeah.
I know if Chuck doesn't like you, you're gonna be fucked. But Chuck was actually like coming up to meets and stuff. We were doing stuff, and Chuck would have like helped. I would have done accessories with him some days, and Chuck would have been like, "That's enough. You don't need to do anymore. You've got a meet coming up." But then I seen him with other people, and he was like, "You could do more. You could do more." And they're like, "I can't." They was like, "I could do more than that." And it's like, so I know if Chuck could push you and like talk you into doing more and more. But to be fair, Chuck was decent enough with me, and we always done enough. And because I was coming up in meets, he like never actually tried to kill me, so I appreciated that.
Yeah. What was the worst thing in your time so far at Westside that you've done? You're like, I'm gonna pass out. Was it that first like squat day?
My first squat day was the worst. Okay. I think, but there is there's a lot of squat days that's bad. Like every Thursday night you go to bed fearing Friday. But when you hear people that talk about they train conjugate, and then you see their Instagram videos and they train with like, I don't know, a couple of quarters and a black band, and they're like speed squats.
Nailed it.
Send it.
I'm like, man, I've squatted 1,055 at the top with bands on a Friday, and it's like 8 sets of 2, and I'm like, that is not dynamic effort what you're doing. That is a fucking holiday.
Yeah.
And if we done that
holiday.
Yeah, if we done that on a Friday, Louis would fucking like spit fire. Like to go in there and do a workout and call that dynamic effort, what you see some people doing, and I'm like, man, Friday is the worst day of the week. So if you're like, I'm just doing some speed squats, it's like, yeah, good for you, but that is not the way we do that, Westside.
Yeah,
it's that's completely different beast. I remember telling people like, these are the percentages we use. This is what's like at the top, and any more than 3 people is too much. You're talking like 45 seconds. You should be able to and gear getting through it. And they're like, that's not possible. It's not possible. Like, oh, it's very possible. I've done it and I've watched it run the rack for it too. Like
when I came home from Westside, I set a timer on my phone trying to replicate the speed we trained at, and you can't. It is impossible to do by yourself. Whenever you have like 2 or 3 people there, I remember, I think me, Burley, Jack Anderson, one of the last times I was over, and we were running our 5x5, and I think the best time we'd done it and starting our working weight for 5x5 for 3 of us or 4 of us was like 8 to 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I have it on video where I just hung my phone up, and Burley would be like, what time do we do it in the day? And I was like, well, we beat, like our first day was say 11. And I was like, well, our first Friday would maybe be 11. Not that we cared about how long it took to do it, but we just seemed to batter through it faster. And it was like, it was heavier the next week, plus we done it faster. And it was like, yeah, well, it was like, that's good work. So
no, that's the beauty of the monolift, is that you can just go in a circle, a carousel. If you have 3 people, one squatting, one running, one adjusting, you just keep going. It's unbelievable the work you can get done on that thing.
Yeah. And you have the right people running it. Plus, obviously, you need the right crew of like if I left at my salts to smell them before I went in sometimes and done my belt, sometimes that was my extra 5 seconds. I'm like, man, I'm taking this. I'm like, fuck, belt, okay, done. And that was me like getting an extra 5 seconds. I'm like, thank the Lord. So, like, just to get them extra 5 seconds. So they do push you. But the thing about Westside is the intensity of the training and the way each other pushes everybody in the competitive atmosphere. It does make you better. It does get you there fast. And when we talk about like people needing to take time, well, you don't get to take time at Westside, but when you get there and you are there, it's because you're already elite and have took your time to get there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I've told a lot of people. The athletes that are at Westside, the lifters that specifically are at Westside, are there because they're the top, and they've gotten to a point where I don't know what else to do to get better. So I have to go to this really, really dark place, this legendary place to figure it out. This 3,800 square foot legendary place to figure out what I can do to go to the next level, because no one around me either is, like you said before, like people around you just aren't at your level, can't push you, and or there's not enough, for lack of a better term, fucked up shit that'll make you better, that really spur that stimulus, that adaptive response.
Like, I know when I tore my bicep, the guys that I train with at home were like, well, you might as well come home because you're not going to do much now with a tore bicep. And like 3 weeks later, I'd done a good deadlift with a tore bicep. And I knew that my job there was to change the number on the board. Yeah. And if get my bicep fixed meant changing the number on the board, Lou would have told me, get your bicep fixed.
Yeah.
But because Lou's been there, done it, seen loads of people doing it before, he's like, you don't need it fixed. And I'm like, okay, I trust and believe in that. And I trained, and all them guys, none of them are like, oh, give yourself a break. It was like, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Do good mornings. And I went back to the meet. And if I was at home or if I was anywhere else in the world, I'd probably be this guy that's got an injury and it's like, I need to nurse my way back to that. Whereas now I'm like, no, I don't. I need to push my way through it, make sure it's okay and not do too much, but also not be held back mentally because I'm hurt and people think, oh, well, because you're hurt, that's you out. Because like I done Ireland's Strongest Man this year and tore my hamstring 3 weeks before that and went and placed in the top 5 in Ireland's Strongest Man. It would have been top 3 if I hadn't pulled my bicep. But
okay. Dustin, what do you got? I feel like I'm hogging all the questions here because he and I have history, so like I'm just asking questions.
No, I'm just thinking. I mean, I think that part of even competing at that level in those kind of strength sports, if you don't have that mentality to continue, because I know a lot of people who get injuries and have had injuries, and they don't have a choice. They mentally shut down. Whether someone told them that you can go through it, you'd be fine. I mean, granted, when you have someone like Louis with that kind of experience and seeing, I don't even know, maybe he's seen thousands of people have that kind of scenario and give you that insight. Like that's a really great thing to have, to give you some confidence for sure. But a lot of people just shut it down. I just think that we're a lot more durable than we think. I think about that all the time. I mean, say I'm a big hunter, and animals run around with arrows sticking through their body, and their bodies heal up and heal over a wound, and they don't stop living. And I think this culture of kind of pussifying everything has done damage to the psyche. And I don't want to just say the male psyche, but just human psyche in general. Is we are unbelievable at recovering and going through stuff, but it's what's between your ears that's really holding you back. So no, I think that's a good thing to hear, because I mean, that's really, we need to go more back that direction, in my opinion, than the softening of society direction. But I don't know.
I think a lot of guys at Westside, if they're sore, Joe will probably tell you duct tape was a magic recovery tool. Like one of the days my leg was sore, we were doing squats on my ground, and it's like, here, just wrap a leg wrap around it tight. You're still squatting. And I'm like, okay. Then I have a video, just in the boy that I've trained with back home messaged me, and he was like, why have your leg wrapped up right around? And I'm like, because my leg was sore, and they just said, wrap it with a wrap tight. What? And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And you know what's really great too? Like for those like 2 small years I ran like the Instagram account, and we put like videos up, and like people have like the leg wrap like ratcheted like around their leg or something, or their upper arm or their calf, whatever. And I legitimately got direct messages from people like, is that we're missing? Is that the secret? Yeah. Is that like, no, it's not. He was just sore.
We believe that might hold our ground on, even though it won't. But
if your mind believes it, all right, your body will follow it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Did you?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have some other stuff, Joe. Just Westside placebos. I feel like you could walk in and be like, "Oh, we did it at Westside," and people be like, "Oh, that's brilliant! Oh,
brilliant,
Jesus,
you You did a max effort 6-rep bench. That's got to be it.
Yeah, you've been hiding the Westside holy water that nobody knows about that Louis keeps under his desk or something like that.
No, Pete's spilling the tea over here. He's telling you everything. He already told you the leg wrap story.
I mean, I'm a little upset that Pete's telling me that you use duct tape and you never told me that.
We should cut this podcast. I probably
we have
a hit put out on me. I'll be alive.
Joe and I haven't had enough time to train, side by side. But did you, Pete? Did you, obviously doing the bodybuilding before everything else? Did the diet and nutrition side, because obviously you had to acquire some knowledge there. I guess how much did you do on your own too? Because I think that's a big component to. Do you own the knowledge? Did you learn it on your own, or do you have someone help you? How did that kind of play into, getting good at the strength side of stuff afterward?
Nutrition wise, I kind of done my own dieting for bodybuilding and stuff, and I learned a lot of nutrition stuff on my own. But to be fair, if you take the layman's term of bodybuilding, it's eating low calorie food that's high protein, and it's not as difficult as people want to make it out to be to make money from. So if you write someone a bodybuilding diet, you're going to be your protein is chicken, steak, salmon, tuna, like a white fish, and then you've sweet potatoes, rice, but and broccoli and asparagus. It's not very hard diet to place together, and the odd time you can eat porridge oats. So I actually find that when I being in bodybuilding and restricting your food and always trying to eat clean, I tried to do that when I was going into strongman, and for a while I sort of still had that regimented lifestyle of like, I need this food and I need to eat this. Whereas now, and Joe will tell you because he shared it in a story not so long ago about me at Westside. Where
I was hoping you'd bring this up. I was going to bring it up if you didn't bring it up. Your snacks.
Yeah. The big family bag of Lay's and like a liter and a half of eggnog and just like
the Oreos.
And stuff. And it's like, food is fuel. So yeah, I get that all sounds like it's shit food, but before that food, I'm like deadlifting 900 plus pounds, doing a lot of accessory work. So I need calories to recover from, and I need to be in a high calorie diet to keep my weight up. So to eat chicken and rice isn't going to cut it.
No.
I started eating higher and more dense calorie foods. I started to grow and like get stronger as well, because it's impossible to just eat that amount of chicken and rice and eggs all the time. So I wouldn't say I have a balance, but I do eat some meals I would eat when bodybuilding in a bigger portion, and then I eat some like junk food as well to make sure I'm on a calorie surplus.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
But a lot of people say that you can't out-train a bad diet, but to be fair, I think when you go around a lot of gyms and see how people train, there's a lot of people that can't out-train a good diet either.
Yeah.
Because they could get fat.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
No, that's another great comment that I haven't heard anyone make, but I've made it offhand a lot of times, and that's I think when people say blanket statements like that as like like the word of the lifting God, it's wildly inaccurate, because they clearly haven't. They must be drawing from a small scope of people that they're looking at. But when obviously you're traveling across country, so you're seeing a lot of different stuff, and you've seen those people that prove the rule where it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, well, I still can look kind of the shape of a bodybuilder and still at 285 pounds at present. Like, I still have some abs showing and still separation in my legs. So I'm not a fat dude by any means, but I'm heavy and I'm still in decent enough condition for what I do. And I know a lot of people that go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week that just eat chicken and rice, and they're like, I can't get big. And it's like they do 4 sets of 10 on like dumbbell curls. They don't push themselves doing it. They do 5 sets of 10. And it's like, Matt, 1, you need to train a lot harder than you're training, and 2, you probably need to eat a lot more than you're eating. So if you don't eat, you grow, and if you don't recover properly, you don't grow either. And if you don't train hard, you ain't really going to break shit down to make you need to recover. So it's a vicious circle. I think the main thing people should need to do to improve is always, number 1, train harder. If you train harder, you'll look better anyway. If you get stronger and train harder, you'll automatically doing that through a period of time will look better and change body composition.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. And Dustin, I don't think I've ever told you this, but like Pete, what you're saying, I 100% buy into. And my biggest growth spurt was 10 pounds in the course of a semester. So like almost like 4 months. It was good lean. I was just as lean as I was, like 10 pounds. And it was because I remember I had a conversation with Hani Rambod in 2010, like the year after Jay Cutler. He got Jay Cutler back. He's like, dude, the biggest thing I did with Jay, he would eat so fucking strict, just like you're saying, Pete, where it's like chicken and rice, whatever the fuck. I was like, you will eat shit 3 times a week. You will. And you'll send me a picture of it. And you'll send me a picture like of you doing it, like actually eating it. And he did. And it just spiked his metabolism, got everything moving again. Like I started eating cheesecake twice a week, like an asshole, like an absolute asshole. Like Tuesday, Thursday, and then like Sunday, I'd have a complete blowout where I wouldn't want to eat for like 6 hours. And I looked just as lean as I was. And Dustin, I talk about this all the time. You just brought it up where it's just like people need to train harder.
Yeah.
They need to fucking try. Give strain to gain. And they just don't do it. I think Gen Pop, like you cannot train a bad diet. Well, I think in that population, you probably can't because you're just lazy fuck.
Yeah. But you can't out-train a bad diet. But you also don't have the willpower to stick to a good one, which means that you're not really going to do anything anyhow. Like if you need to just 4 times a day of like bland food of chicken and rice because you can't out-train a bad diet, but you can't train hard enough to change without starving yourself to try and look good. Like there is obviously the thing I like about strongman and powerlifting is its performance. Bodybuilding is obviously an aesthetic aspect, and to do it at a level where you have to be dieted down and in very good condition. Obviously the last 6 weeks is really about who mentally can starve the best, because you ain't eating enough food to do much, but mentally, like you're hungry, but you still get up, you still do your works, you still try and train, you still try and push yourself as hard as you can. But it's starvation in the last 6 weeks of bodybuilding. I don't believe that the last 6 weeks is entirely actually healthy for anyone. It's just about how good you can start.
Yeah, Dustin, you've been through that multiple times.
Yeah, no, I know it is that. It's who can get to this. It's way more of a mental game than anything at that point, and who can kind of achieve this monk status of. I mean, and I was one too. Like I'm not one to go through the motions, and I've gotten very, very detailed in the kind of science behind my nutrition. So, it was definitely more challenging in the beginning, and as I gained more knowledge, it definitely got easier to where I didn't have to suffer quite as much because I brought more knowledge to myself at that time. But even then, it's very, you just got to be very, I think you get a heightened sense of focus. I mean, I get it from fasting too. You just develop this different mental capacity when you do that and you go through it, and you don't fold. Like you can't break it. You go through it. I think it's important.
Well, like my thing was when I done bodybuilding, I used to buy people sweets, and it was like watch them eat them, and I'm like, are they nice? But then if I ate one, like if I put a sweet in my mouth, I didn't swallow it, I might have sucked it for like a second or two and spat it out, and I'm like, nah, I have to do an extra 10 minutes on the bike in the morning. So my cardio went from 25 minutes to 35 minutes because I put a sweet in my mouth. I didn't like cheat myself and do, I'm only doing 7. I'm like, man, it got to 25 minutes and I'm like, motherfucker, another 10 for eating a gummy bear. And I didn't even swallow it. And like by the time I put like 3 gummy bears in my mouth throughout prep, even at the early stage, I was like, and the thing is, it wouldn't have, 3 gummy bears will never be the difference of winning and losing a bodybuilding competition. But the thing was, I was good at discipline and punishing myself for not being as disciplined as I needed to be. So as much as that's kind of like, that's nearly sounds like an eating disorder or some kind of disorder, but it didn't take me too long to realize if I'm good at punishing myself, then I should be as disciplined as just not putting a gummy bear in my mouth. So I'm like, okay. So that was so kind of more knowledge.
I get it.
I'm still locked on the first bit of that. I'm saying you would, during prep, you would buy people like candy and give it to them and watch them eat it.
Yeah. So like I'd have jumped into the car with my ass and been like, got you candy. And he was like, right, okay. And I'm like, are you not going to eat some of it? And he was like, no, I'm all right. And I'm like, oh, did you not? I got them. They was like, fuck me. They eat one. And I'm like, is that weakness? Then I would like smell the bag of sweets. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So, yeah, that's the knowledge I've got. Don't eat that, or you have to do more minutes in the bike.
All I'm picturing is what's his face in Dodgeball, where he's in his room with like the
Ben Stiller,
Ben Stiller with the electrodes
he's an idiot,
his nipples, staring at donuts like.
One bite wouldn't hurt. So you're telling me, so you would buy people sweets, you'd watch them eat it, and if you had some, you would add on 10 minutes. Even if you put it in your mouth, you'd add 10 minutes. So this is like something. Was this like a weird like misogyny, the fetish you had, like pre-contest?
Yeah, I was like, put them between your toes and eat them.
And then just describe to me in detail what it tastes like. Oh.
Yeah, take your socks off and eat this bit of candy.
Oh, talking about feet. I'm
your fucking dad.
Talking about feet. This is something way off topic, but I'm going to bring it up because Pete and I have. He's shown me a lot of fun stuff. No, nothing like that. No. We haven't finished each other. No, I'm not saying that. But did you know, Pete? I'm sure you did, because I'm sure you've looked at this on Snapchat. You can sell foot fetish pictures and make a good bit of money.
Trust me, Joe. I've been looking at there since.
Hey, you have?
Oh yeah.
Dude,
the allure of someone that's a strength sport bodybuilder to have a business of basically just gigoloing out whatever thing. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, all three of us could not actually work and have some weird OnlyFans thing and probably be making six figures.
Yeah.
But, I'm not kidding, Joe. I am not kidding.
I know you. You don't kid.
Remotely exaggerate. I don't kid. I'm not a funny person.
I know.
But then you don't really have your dignity, do you? Well,
no. That's why we're having this conversation.